Funny thing happened tonight. I was just sitting there, getting ready to go home, when I found myself drawing a map of the world, which wasn't strange, I guess. You see, I've just returned from a trip to Israel, sort of a business trip. Before I went, my wife, who's working with Hadassah, the group that does a big medical job in Israel, said, "Joe, take a look at my work, too, while you're there." And tonight I'm supposed to show her these pictures I took. I've got to tell her what I saw, bring it alive, and it's hard. You see, these people did something to me in Israel. Because I'm an American, a Jew, a decent human being. Why is it going to be difficult? What happened? Well, put it like this. I remember seeing another map before I left, showing places from which Jews are fleeing to Israel. Nearly 500,000 in 2 years. Made you think, not feel, think, because it wasn't alive, see? Do you follow me? It came alive for me when I stopped in Yemen, where Oriental Jews begin their trek to Israel. I'll never forget that desert. My first glimpse of those Yemenite Jews. I watched the way they hurried to the briefing. I saw how they sat there with intelligent, concentrated, listening faces. Nearby were their tense, strangely dressed women. They take them out in planes, you know, double the usual load, because they're so thin. And when you watch them pack in, something gets you. They have so little to take with them. You're an American, so, well, it makes you feel apologetic. There's something so moving about their magnetic pull toward Israel. There's something so touching about the way those kids line up and get hoisted aboard. And instinctively, you look around to see what they leave behind. Centuries of persecution lie there. I saw what they come to later, not far away. And the words Jerusalem the Golden and the Promised Land took on new meaning. These people really go home, home to Israel. What happens when they get there? Well, you've got to remember that they're uniquely pious, simple, dignified, talented people. And though they need everything, food, clothes, they're happy because they're home. They know before they come that it'll take time to get decent schools, houses, work, but they see Israel straining to help them. And they understand. They understand. They've got nice kids, like ours. They're ingenious, adapting quickly to everything. Some are very beautiful. I suddenly wanted to see what Hadassah was doing for them. So I did as my wife had ordered and went up to the Hadassah Tuberculosis Hospital in Safad first. That hospital took one mess of a beating during the Arab-Israel War. But like a lot of things there, it doesn't show it. And I got my first real close-up there of what scientific care and just plain loving kindness can do to wipe out fear and the results of persecution. You know, Hadassah pioneered TB care in Israel nearly 40 years ago. The site is beautiful. It has a sacred religious history, too. I kept remembering this when I asked one of the doctors what chance these newcomers had. I never expected the answer I got. I learned a lot about Israel from him. The doctor looked around at his helpers, then toward a group of girls, some of them pretty sick. And his voice came against the background of their soft talking. And know what he said? He said, "People are like trees, my friend. If you want them to live, they do." Whenever I went into a Hadassah institution after that, I was haunted by what that doctor said. I kept remembering those trees. Next day in Jerusalem, I realized again that those Hadassah workers were special people. You've only to look at them to know it. They went right on working like you see them today, right through war, siege, hunger, moving just as deliberately as you see them today. Even when their medical center outside town was being shot up, they stayed on the job through it all. Watching it from streets like these, never faltering, taking epidemics, emergencies. No wonder the people love them. I thought, I'm proud Hadassah's an American outfit. I got a glimpse of their medical center on Mount Scopus, outside of Jerusalem, that very first day. It was at a convoy station where a group of Hadassah leaders from America was making ready to go up for supplies and things. The United Nations has a task force there now. All seemed pretty routine, until I remembered that nearly 100 medical people died defending that hill, and that this was the reason Hadassah moved into 5 hospitals in town. They let me see an operation in one of those hospitals. They told me it used to be a Catholic convent, which the sisters loaned to Hadassah. I don't know much about such things, but they look mighty skillful to me, despite the crowding. One of the chaps kept lecturing through it all, and later I learned he was a top-notch American surgeon, brought over to demonstrate the new techniques. And suddenly, I saw what my wife meant when she said Hadassah has carried on a Medical Point 4 program of its own for 40 years, exporting the latest drugs, equipment, and experts to Israel. Yes, they took any kind of old structure they could get during the war, and that's why they've got to build a new medical center really soon. I asked one of the patients if he minded the crowding. He said, "Oh, it's much harder for the staff than for us. We always get the best." When you go back, you tell them that Hadassah people are, as you say it, tops in medicine, Mr. American. Yes, tops in tenderness and skill. You watch them in their TB ward for kids, the only one of its kind in Israel. And you want to give them the shirt off your back. Well, across the way, they pointed out the Hadassah School of Nursing. It was between classes, and it all looked so fresh and attractive that I went over. I don't believe I've ever seen a sweeter-looking bunch of girls. Watching them, you'd never know they came from concentration camps, ghettos, poverty. You sense a wonderful cooperative spirit. You feel they like each other, like the world, and most important, like what they're doing. But here, too, they told me they're terribly crowded in temporary quarters. They keep talking about that new medical center where they're going to have a new building, too. They study in Hebrew, you know, and their school is accredited by the government. When they're finished, these girls are grabbed up for jobs. Gave me a kick, you know, to watch them prepare for an examination. Tense, like students everywhere. But, well, you got the feeling that here, nursing is more than a profession. It's a beautiful way of life. Brother, you gotta start from scratch when you take in 500,000 people from hell itself. You gotta be patient, good. I saw how it's done in one of Hadassah's 70 welfare stations. First, you sell them the idea of coming with their babies. And then delicately, you gotta give them the truth. This one's undernourished. That one has TB. And then carefully, tactfully, you assure them that you're prepared to do something about it. Help them. Stay and see it through. Then the Hadassah public health nurse takes over, searches them out, becomes familiar with their needs, teaches them what to eat, how to cook it, how to keep clean. Every place I went, I kept remembering what the doctor said. If you want them to live, they do. They come from Europe, North Africa, Arab lands. I often thought of American pioneer days when I saw those nurses teaching 20th century medical ideas with primitive tools. You'd be surprised how ingenious they are, how they make do with everything at hand. I was fascinated by it. I learned that cooling a formula right and making an emergency diaper can mean something, can also be translated as part of the 4 freedoms. Think about it. Every American who believes in the worth of the individual will know what I mean. They're X-raying the whole school population to search out tuberculosis, which has become enemy number 1 in Israel. The incidence among children is terribly high. I sat in on the dental clinics to which Hadassah school nurses send the grammar school kids for free care. I watched the native-born children of Hadassah staff playing and eating and working in the day nursery. And I realized why Israelis say that children are their greatest natural resource. It began to add up for me there on that roof in the sun. I felt close to them, as an American, as a Jew, as a human being. And I thought, Joe, what are you going to do to help them? Those Hadassah nurses began to look like soldiers to me, perpetually warring for the happiness of a whole people. I kept thinking, Americans should want to help them, go on raising children who, together with our own, can safely take tomorrow in their hands. You know, my father used to say, he who teaches is blessed. But this was the first time I saw it connected with things like getting the right glasses, like studying first aid, like learning how to brush your teeth, how to keep your face clean, or just being happy enough to want to make a bouquet for your teacher. Then the next day on the street, I saw some workers loading beds and mattresses and things, and, well, sort of aimlessly, I decided to follow their cart. I soon found myself outside a Hadassah warehouse. And you know, I almost laughed. I remembered how my wife and her friends back home were all over the place, collecting linen, knitting sweaters, making clothes, buying equipment. For Hadassah, they said, and 100 other institutions. Well, here, that stuff is not just things. It's a lifesaver. And Israel holds life dear. For a good reason. I saw why a couple of days later when I went down to the Negev, the desert area toward Beersheba. Every inch of ground a memorial to the fighters, to the colonists who stayed put under onslaught, with results you can see everywhere. You'd imagine nobody could bear to look at it again. But Israel is not like that. Where was I going? Where were the soldiers going? To see a ceremony at a Hadassah hospital opened in Beersheba in the name of Hadassah fighters who'd been wiped out on the medical front. A simple ceremony, the signing of a book by those left to live, to carry on in the ruins. Yes, I thought, you American women are right. That's the way it should be. Keep on reaching across from our land to this young, new democracy. A hand of healing. Keep working. I'll help to build for the medical school, too, which you opened with the Hebrew University, making a kind of holiday of it, an act of hope and faith. The doctors you train the American way will speak a language we all understand, because healing knows no frontiers, and mercy makes all men brothers. So, that's how I sat there, looking at my photos, sort of making myself a speech, clearing it up in my mind. I know now what is the meaning of those 8 Hadassah hospitals, those clinics, that medical school, those 70 health stations, and that new medical center which Hadassah must build so that Jerusalem and Israel and science can have a service hospital, a teaching hospital, a research hospital to go on with the good fight. Because don't you see, Hadassah's fight is our fight too. Only hands of healing, spanning all frontiers, can unite mankind in freedom and in brotherhood.